we're trapped with this inflation. Inflation is a terrible thing. It's what brings down hegemonies. And you look at things simplistically. I look at it just very simplistically. That's where, if you can do that and sort of understand the markets that way, you should be successful over a long period of time. And right now, there are real problems because inflation is a terrible thing. And once you have it, it's almost like being drug dependent, and it's very hard to get rid of it once it starts. I mean, I remember the 70s, but it takes down countries, it takes down hegemonies. And I think Powell is very right to do anything he can to stop this inflation that's coming on. And the real surprising thing is that you haven't had it before, because for the last years, we've been just printing up money and just giving it out. And one of the major problems is, I think, and nobody's blamed them, but it's corporate America. It's the CEOs, rubber stamp boards, and the money has been very cheap. So they've been able to borrow money very cheaply, but instead of putting it back into production, they've taken that money, borrowed more and more, and bought stocks at very high valuations. And now it's time to pay the price of that. So you'll have more and more debt coming due or interest rates to pay at higher prices. And that is a problem as far as earnings are concerned. And aside from that, household net worth, I would say median household net worth is really non-existent in this country. So half the households have no net worth. And the other half, except for the very top 10%, I think are very concerned about what's happening. And they're looking at their net worth, which is the market and their homes. And you have to be very concerned about that. And what I look for are companies that have some hidden jewel. And that served our purposes. We find a company with hidden jewels and are either not well managed, or the boards are rubber stamping too much debt or whatever. And we get it on those boards. And eventually, sometimes you have to replace the CEO. And a lot of these companies are doing well. So you take CVI, our refinery. Our refinery, I mean, it took years, but it's now actually functioning greatly because we have spent quite a bit of capital in it over the years. We had to save it for going bankrupt. The government, in their great wisdom, with ESG, made refineries very difficult to make a profit. So a large number of small refineries went out of business. And I won't go into the details, but they penalize refineries, and they tell them they don't want them. So unlike almost in any other industry, where if you're doing well, you build more. If you're doing well in the widget business, you build more widget factories. You can't build another refinery. You take CVI, for instance. The refineries we have to replace would be, $10-12 billion, I believe. You can't put a number on it because you really can't build another one in this country. So you can't have that competitive element coming in. A lot of refineries went out of business. A lot of the large refineries, or the big companies, listened to the government telling you how terrible refineries were and stopped building them up. So today, what they call the crack spread has widened tremendously. The diesel crack, for instance, has gone up as high as $75 or $80, and that just means it used to be, $20, $25. So obviously, our EBITDA has, for 3 quarters, has gone up to $800 million, I believe, or close to $1 billion. But then you can't really come in and say, well, these refineries, should pay more taxes or something, because in the bad times, I must have put $300-400 million in to save that refinery or that 2 refineries when a lot of refineries went out of business. So now you're backed into an energy problem for gasoline and diesel. And diesel is very important today. Diesel now is used in Europe to generate electricity, which will stop eventually. And from the point of view of ESG, you have something called bunker fuel that is really, really polluting the water as we speak. So diesel is used to replace that terrible fuel they used. And then our refinery, Wynnewood and Coffeyville, the 2 refineries, we're able to produce fertilizer or help to produce fertilizer. So we don't need, with fertilizer, you need ammonia. You need gas to make the ammonia, NH3. You need natural gas, except we're the only one in the country, and people don't understand this, that built this many years ago. We had the foresight to build it. I can't take credit for it. Well, there too, you look for a couple of the hidden jewels. I mean, it's in an industry that has natural growth, because it's in an industry where you're slowly but surely getting rid of plastic containers. So because of the environment again. And for some reason, the earnings of this company have not come to fruition. Their earnings are down. Well, a lot of companies' earnings are down, but I think one of the problems that corporations do, and there are many good CEOs, there are many good boards, but a lot of the problems are that they try to diversify, or they try to say, I'm going to take over a company because I got this company, and you're going to get synergies. And synergies are very hard to get. If you look back in history, Jack Welch was good enough to get synergies at GE, but then look what happened. So they went out and bought different companies. We think they should just get rid of it and stick to the can business. I think there's a lot of things that you can do in that company. They're not badly run, but I think that many of this, but this whole business of diversifying has hurt their earnings, hurt their multiple, and eventually that company should flourish just by the nature of the business they're in. So stock went down a lot, and we bought a fair amount of it. We're going to try to. I talked to the CEO today. We'd like representation on the board, as we always try to get. We may get it, we may not. We may have a proxy fight, we may not. We haven't decided yet. But that's relatively small. We have a lot of companies at IEP. Right now, I just mentioned CBI because it sort of typifies what we do over the years to get the record we've had. I've been approached on different companies. I was approached, I looked at Twitter, and I loved it. I think it's a great platform. I think Elon Musk is the perfect one for that company. You don't have to be a genius to realize that he was going to finish that deal. He was up against lawsuits that he wouldn't have won in Delaware, in my opinion, the Chancery Court there. And so we bought a lot of stock in it. Well, I bought stock when it went down we were thinking of it, and then he announced what he was doing. The stock went down, and we loaded up with it. I mean, we bought close to, I can't remember exactly, 15 million shares, which is a fair amount to get when it was in the 30s. But one of the major problems is there's no corporate governance. I mean, corporate governance in this country is an oxymoron. Corporate democracy is an oxymoron. And there's an article today about BlackRock talking about it. And I hope my thing, and I know him, really does something, because actually these index funds protect bad CEOs or CEOs that are just there. And you don't have any accountability in corporate America. And in Twitter, I think it's sort of ludicrous. I mean, I'm not going to get into the politics of whether or not you should have the right to censor somebody or not, although I think you really shouldn't censor anybody unless there's a real reason for it. But what's ludicrous is that a couple of people at Twitter who are employees of Twitter, they work for the shareholders, decide in their great wisdom who can go on the platform and who can't. And I think those days are over. That's just ludicrous. So I just looked at it and felt that if for some reason Musk doesn't do it, we'll probably launch a proxy fight. But what happened was Musk came in, and I said to myself, I said to my guys, I mean, he's the perfect guy for this. And I would, obviously have supported anything he did. I think he's, I don't know him, but I think some of the things he says and does, I think, are brilliant. I mean, I'm not in Tesla, but I never own Tesla because, to me, it's not my kind of stock. It's just too high a multiple. But so we went in and bought all that stock, and, we made a lot of money on it. We're happy about that. There's something inside of me. If you owned a chain of restaurants, if you owned it, Steve, your family gave you a chain of restaurant, and you have a major domo at the restaurant, would you allow him to say, I don't like that guy, he can't come into the restaurant, and I'll let that guy come in? You say, I'm going to fire you. I mean, so that to me, it just was a ludicrous situation. And I'm not deciding here or discussing the political aspects of whether or not you should have